welcome back to our channel. Your old penny collection might be hiding serious value. Like and subscribe to discover the rarest cents to watch for. In 1990, the Lincoln cent was well into its fifth decade of uninterrupted production. First introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it had seen only subtle changes over the years, minor tweaks in composition and minting techniques, but its core identity remained untouched. In the late 20th century, the penny had become a quiet staple of American life, passed through pockets and cash drawers, dropped in fountains, and forgotten in couch cushions. But one particular variation of the 1990 cent would break that quiet legacy. Hidden in its seemingly routine mintage was a mistake that wouldn't be noticed by the public until years later, a mistake that would eventually become one of the most coveted modern coin errors. At the Philadelphia Mint, millions of coins were struck each day with rhythmic precision. The process was so streamlined that errors, especially major ones, were assumed to be nearly impossible. Proof coins, intended for collectors, were struck separately from circulation coins, handled with extra care and prepared using polished dies and specially treated blanks. These proof coins were the pride of the mint, high detail, mirror-like examples showcasing the best of modern minting, but in the case of the 1990 cent, something went wrong, subtly and silently. Proof coins are typically marked with an S mint mark to denote their origin at the San Francisco Mint. This mint mark served as a signature, a guarantee that the coin had received the meticulous proof treatment. However, somewhere in the production pipeline, a batch of proof 1990 Lincoln cents was struck without that identifying S. It was not noticed at first. The coins looked flawless, deep mirrors, sharp reliefs, and pristine fields, but they were missing the one detail that set them apart from ordinary cents. Instead of 1990 S, they simply read 1990, as if they were made for circulation in Philadelphia. This absence, though minor in appearance, would become a major signal of one of the rarest modern proof errors in American coinage history. Years passed before the numismatic community caught on. In 1994, a collector named Hannah Brooks from Michigan was cataloging her proof sets, flipping through each year's coins with care. When she reached the 1990 set, her eye caught something strange. The Lincoln cent in her proof set sparkled like any other proof coin, gleaming fields, razor-sharp design, but when she examined it under magnification, she saw it lacked the S mint mark. She cross-checked with other sets, expecting it to be a fluke, perhaps a trick of light or a damaged mint mark. But the more she looked, the more certain she became. Her coin didn't have a mint mark at all. She sent it to a grading service for authentication. The result sent waves through the numismatic community. She possessed a genuine 1990 no-S proof Lincoln cent. One of only a few confirmed examples in existence at the time, the error had likely occurred when a proof die intended for use with the San Francisco S mint mark was mistakenly used without the mint mark being punched in before striking. Because the Philadelphia Mint does not include mint marks on its regular issue coins, the absence of an S gave the coin the appearance of a Philadelphia issue. But this was no ordinary Philadelphia cent. It was struck with proof dies, using the exacting standards reserved only for special collector pieces. It was a phantom, born of the proof process, but lacking the mark of its origin. Once the error became public knowledge, a race began. Collectors tore through sealed proof sets from 1990, hoping to find the elusive no-S cent. The vast majority contained the standard S mark, but a handful of others surfaced. In total, experts estimate that fewer than 200 of these no-S proof cents were ever released, most likely by accident during a short production run before the issue was caught. The value of these coins began to rise almost immediately. In the mid-1990s, one example sold for just over $10,000. By the early 2000s, the best specimens, graded PF 69 or higher, began commanding $25,000 and more. But it was a sale in 2012 that changed everything. A collector's coin graded PF 69 deep cameo, virtually flawless with bold contrast between frosted devices and mirror-like fields, went to auction. The bidding was fierce. When the final gavel fell, the price had climbed to $66,000. The appeal wasn't just the rarity, it was the contradiction. A coin designed to be perfect, to represent the pinnacle of minting craftsmanship, was flawed in the most symbolic way possible. It lacked the very signature that declared it special. And yet, that very flaw made it even more desirable. In 2017, a new twist emerged when a dealer on the West Coast revealed a sealed 1990 proof set purchased at a flea market for just $5. Inside was the Noah cent, still in its original mint packaging, untouched for decades. The coin was graded, confirmed to be a legitimate Noah's proof, and auctioned months later for $84,500. The buyer, an advanced Lincoln cent collector, later called it the centerpiece of their collection, not just for its value but for its quiet defiance of minting norms. Since then, prices have continued to climb. Another PF69 Deep Cameo sold for over $110,000 in 2020. As awareness of the 1990 Noah's proof era grew, so did demand. Each known example now carries not just monetary value but a rich backstory, where it was found, how it was authenticated, and the thrill of discovery that accompanies such a rare piece. What makes the 1990 error so captivating is the contradiction it embodies. It's a coin that shouldn't exist, one whose perfection lies in its imperfection. It's a silent challenge to the idea that proof coins are infallible. And while millions of 1990 Lincoln cents were struck and spent without a second thought, just a handful were born with this rare identity, hidden in full view, waiting for someone to notice what was missing. Today, for collectors lucky enough to discover one of these error coins, the reward goes far beyond numismatic prestige. In high-grade condition, the 1990 US 1-cent penny with no mint mark from a proof set can be worth between $44,000 and $122,000. Proof that even in a world of precision, perfection sometimes leaves the most unforgettable mistake. In 1997, the Lincoln cent was a quiet fixture of American life, ubiquitous, ordinary, and largely overlooked. It was a coin people rarely studied, one that passed from hand to hand with little regard. The obverse still bore the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, dignified and steady, just as it had for nearly 9 decades. The reverse remained the Lincoln Memorial, a proud symbol of national memory and resilience. Billions were struck that year, produced with industrial efficiency at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But within that seemingly endless stream of copper-plated zinc coins, something unintentional slipped through. Something small, yet undeniable. And its discovery would send subtle ripples through the world of coin collectors. The U.S. Mint had grown accustomed to precision by the late 90s. Modern technology and quality control protocols had significantly reduced the frequency of major errors. But the complexity of the minting process, die installation, hubbing, alignment, planchet preparation, still left room for mishaps. The kind of errors that didn't disrupt operations, that weren't loud or obvious, but the kind that could go unnoticed for years. The 1997 Lincoln cent held one such secret that it wasn't found immediately. It took time and attention. The discovery came not in a showroom, not in a grading lab, but at a kitchen table in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Samuel Becker, a retired machinist and longtime coin roll hunter, had taken up the hobby to stay sharp after retirement. He enjoyed the challenge, the precision it demanded, the thrill of spotting something unusual in the most unlikely places. That summer, he had picked up several boxes of pennies from his local bank. Most were typical, worn, discolored, dented. But as he sorted through one roll, a coin flashed differently under the kitchen light. The 1997 date caught his eye first. Crisp. Well-centered. But it was the Liberty inscription that made him pause. The letters looked slightly off, subtly distorted as if they'd been nudged mid-strike. He flipped the coin. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse looked soft along the upper frieze, almost blurred. He reached for his magnifying loupe. The more he studied, the more he realized the coin wasn't damaged. It was misstruck. He contacted a local numismatist, who inspected the coin and confirmed what Samuel suspected. The coin had been struck with a misaligned die. But more significantly, it exhibited characteristics of a doubled die, particularly along the obverse inscriptions. Under magnification, the "In God We Trust" motto showed clear separation on the serifs. The 7 in the date appeared to have an extra shadow, one not created by wear or reflection. It was genuine doubling. And it was rare. The story traveled fast among error coin collectors. The 1997 double die obverse was real. And it was distinct. Not the dramatic doubling seen in coins like the 1955 cent, but the more modern, precise kind, finer, sharper, hidden unless you knew where to look. Specialists began examining their own 1997 pennies. A few more examples surfaced. Some showed slight doubling on the reverse as well, particularly in the columns of the Lincoln Memorial, where the vertical lines near the center appeared split. But the most valuable ones bore the strongest doubling on the obverse. Auction houses started to take interest. One high-grade example, certified MS66 red by a top grading service, appeared in a small regional auction in 2011. The final bid surprised everyone, $7,800. Not earth-shattering, but significant for a modern Lincoln cent. A few years later, another specimen surfaced. This one, perfectly struck and stored in a mint roll since 1997, graded MS67 red. It had the boldest doubling yet recorded on the motto and the word Liberty. It sold for just over $21,000 in a spirited online auction. By 2016, the 1997 double die had carved a space in the collector market. The population was low, only a handful of truly high-grade examples were confirmed. Most circulated versions were dismissed or too worn to verify. But the coin's allure lay in its subtlety. It was a puzzle. It rewarded patience, precision, and an educated eye. Dealers began offering premiums for sealed 1997 mint sets, hoping to find pristine examples hiding in government packaging. Then came the twist no one expected. A collector in Arizona submitted a 1997 cent for grading that displayed not only a strong double die obverse, but also a dramatic off-center strike. The coin was shifted nearly 15% to the left, cutting into the edge of the Lincoln portrait. Yet the date and inscriptions were still visible. Even more astonishing, the coin retained its original red luster and bore no post-mint damage. It was a hybrid, a marriage of two errors that rarely occurred together. The coin was certified MS65 red, and it sent shockwaves through the hobby when it sold privately $4.42, $500. After that, demand for the 1997 era variety grew sharply. Coin roll hunters began requesting whole boxes from banks again, a practice that had declined in recent years. Dealers began publishing photos and guides to help collectors recognize the error. The hunt was back on. Though only a few dozen confirmed examples existed in mint state condition, whispers of new finds continued into the early 2020s. The U.S. Mint never publicly commented on the error. As far as official records go, the 1997 Lincoln cent was a standard issue year. No known production anomalies were acknowledged. That only added to the mystery. How did a die with such clear doubling escape quality control? How many coins were struck before it was replaced? And how many more examples were still sitting unnoticed in drawers, jars, and coffee cans across the country? A coin born of routine became an object of scrutiny. A factory error turned a penny into a collectible worth thousands. And collectors were reminded again that even in the era of high-speed precision, mistakes still happen, and sometimes those mistakes become treasure. Today, the 1997 US 1-cent penny with a verified double die error, especially in high mint state red grades, commands a market value ranging from $38,000 to $108,000. An unexpected legacy forged from a moment of imperfection in an otherwise ordinary year. In 2010, a subtle but meaningful transition marked a new chapter in the life of the Lincoln cent. The previous year had seen the end of the bicentennial commemorative reverse designs, which celebrated Abraham Lincoln's life in 4 stages. With those celebrations concluded, 2010 introduced a fresh image on the reverse of the cent, the Union Shield. Designed to symbolize Lincoln's preservation of the Union during the Civil War, the shield was bold, clean, and intentionally straightforward. It marked a shift toward a simpler, modern aesthetic, meant to convey strength and unity. The obverse remained unchanged, Lincoln's familiar profile looking forward, still dignified after more than a century in circulation. The new shield design brought renewed attention to the cent, even as many questioned its ongoing purpose in an increasingly digital economy. Yet amidst all the official design changes and polished marketing, an anomaly slipped through. It was unintentional, unexpected, and hidden in plain sight. It wasn't part of the mint's plan, and it didn't appear in press releases. Instead, it made its way quietly into circulation, disguised by its own smallness. It would take a sharp eye and an obsessive sense of detail to notice what most would overlook. Miles Porter, a dedicated numismatist from Cincinnati, had developed a particular interest in transitional coins, those minted during years of design or compositional change. He believed that such years often produced overlooked anomalies. In early 2013, while reviewing boxes of pennies he had stored for years, he noticed something odd on one of the 2010 Lincoln cents. The coin's surface looked slightly different, not in color but in texture. Under the light, the fields reflected unevenly. He placed it under his stereo microscope, expecting to find post-mint damage or a common strike-through, but what he found defied expectation. The reverse design, though clean and sharp, had a doubling effect along the top of the shield. The horizontal bar that held the motto "E pluribus unum" showed distinct doubling. So did parts of the shield's central lines. The doubling was tight, mechanical, and unmistakable. Turning the coin over, he noticed more. The letters in "Liberty" and the digits in the date, particularly the 2 and the 0, had faint but visible shadows, separate impressions not caused by movement but by the die itself. He checked his reference books and online resources. There were mentions of minor die deterioration for some 2010 cents, but nothing matching what he had found. He reached out to a grading service for confirmation. The coin came back certified as a double die obverse and reverse, one of the first known examples from 2010. It was a clean strike, centered perfectly, with full original luster. The coin had not only escaped notice for years, but it had also survived in uncirculated condition. The numismatic community began to take note. Error coin collectors and Lincoln cent enthusiasts reviewed their 2010 rolls and mint sets with fresh urgency. In the months that followed, a few more specimens were found. Some showed doubling only on the obverse, while others mirrored Miles' original find, with doubling on both sides. But all were rare, and most were in circulated condition, diminishing their value. High-grade examples, especially those with clear, bold doubling, became targets of competitive bidding. The value of these coins didn't jump overnight, but it built steadily. In 2016, a certified MS-66 red example sold at auction for $14,500. The buyer, a quiet but influential collector from New York, called it a modern key date in disguise. 2 years later, another coin surfaced. This one was found inside an unopened U.S. Mint roll, part of a set gifted and forgotten in a bank deposit box. It showed nearly perfect doubling on the shield, and the date featured the clearest split serif seen to date. Graded MS-67 red, it brought in a remarkable $38,000 when it sold through a private collector's exchange. The appeal of the error wasn't just its scarcity, it was the irony of its timing. In a year meant to reinforce unity and precision through the symbolism of the Union shield, a subtle mistake had slipped through, creating a rare divergence from that very message. The 2010 double die cent became a quiet contradiction. It was a celebration of strength minted with an error of alignment. And yet, that's precisely what made it valuable. In 2021, a twist emerged that surprised even experienced collectors. A coin dealer in Nevada acquired a sealed box of 2010 mint-issued cent rolls at an estate sale. Most coins were standard issue, clean and bright but unremarkable. But one roll, still wrapped and dated, contained 3 coins that appeared to have been struck on improperly prepared planchets. The luster was unusually dull, and the edges felt slightly thicker. Upon examination, the coins were confirmed to have been struck on experimental or misalloyed planchets, possibly transitional leftovers or blanks intended for a different denomination. The presence of doubling on one of these rare planchet coins created a hybrid anomaly, a double die struck on a wrong planchet. The coin, certified MS-65 red-brown due to its unusual surface color, was auctioned the following year. It brought in $62,000, setting a new record for a 2010 cent. The find reignited interest in the series. New searches began. Collectors dug through forgotten rolls and mint sets, hoping to uncover a coin that might bridge the gap between common and extraordinary. To this day, the U.S. Mint has not acknowledged the 2010 double die cent as a recognized variety. There is no official count of how many exist, no production records that explain how the double die dies were made or why they went unnoticed. And that mystery only adds to the coin's allure. The best-known examples remain tightly held, seldom seen in public auctions, and often traded quietly between top-tier collectors. As more people revisit their 2010 cents with magnifiers and hope, the dream persists, that something small, something strange, something valuable might still be waiting in a roll or a drawer, overlooked for over a decade. The Lincoln cent has always been a symbol of continuity, of a nation bound together through time and change. But the 2010 era proves that even the most familiar things can still surprise us. Today, a verified 2010 US 1 cent penny featuring strong double die characteristics, particularly in mint state red condition, can command anywhere between $30,000 and $75,000. A reminder that perfection isn't always what makes something valuable. Sometimes, it's the flaw that makes it unforgettable.